Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Buckeye Breakdown. Owen Smith, Matt Warner. We are so back, Matt. How are you doing?
We're back. Football is slowly but surely coming back. We've got Hard Knocks is on our TV. We've got preseason NFL football. But most importantly, the Buckeyes are back out on the practice field. A lot of new faces, new coaches, and coming off of a phenomenal end to last season as the defending national champs. I'm ready. I feel like this has been the longest off season. I'm excited, ready to hop into it. Let's do this.
Yeah, man, it's been a long time since we've been on the podcast mic together. Clearly, you and I have texted about the Buckeyes all year. I kind of went through, clearly the highest of highs of winning a national championship and just how amazing that run was. Then I kind of went through this dead period of like, do I even care about Buckeye football anymore? And then like, I'm so back. Like it was like it was just like the coming off that high, and so much has changed, right? We fell in love with a lot of these guys over the past, 4 or 5 years, or, even back to, I remember the 4th of July when JT Tuimoloau committed, and like how excited I was in that moment. And just to now say goodbye to a lot of those guys. And, it's the beauty of college football, though, is that you get to, kind of identify these new players, and you got excited for them just, a year or two ago. But of course, you have two of the most exciting guys back on the roster. Very rare that you ever have that opportunity to lose so much, but also, keep the most critical players of Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs for at least another year and 2 years with Jeremiah. So, yeah, man, we're back, and we are just a little under 3 weeks away from the big game that opens up the year with Texas, and that's going to be a roller coaster in itself of like trying to figure out what's going to happen, and what expectations we should have going into that game, and kind of how that sets the tone for the rest of the year, right? You're either like crawling back up after a loss, or you're setting the stage for a potential back-to-back national championship run by opening up and winning there. So a lot to get to. Of course, since we haven't been on the podcast mic, there's a lot to catch up on, kind of reset. Hey, what is this Buckeye roster look like? What coaching changes, what things have happened. So this episode will be a lot on kind of what has changed, what has happened, what are kind of our expectations for the team as a whole. And then over the next coming weeks, we'll be back. We'll do an offensive breakdown. We'll do a defensive breakdown. And then of course, we will, wrap up the preseason by previewing what's going to happen in that first game with Texas. So Matt, a lot has changed. Already spoke to some of it as well, but I think, minus the players, and clearly we can go all day on, how big of an impact those guys have. But I think the maybe underrated factor is that we did lose Jim Knowles and Chip Kelly in that. So how do you, we don't have to spend too much time on it, and we'll focus more on the new, but like, how do you feel? We're almost 6 months removed from when those changes happened. And we are now in preseason camp. How do you feel about kind of the coaching situation with our two main coordinators leaving at the end of last year?
Yeah, it's funny. Like you said it, you win the national championship, like you're at the peak of the mountain, and then like the way college football is now with transfer portal, you've got recruiting, coaching changes, like you immediately snap into, okay, that was really fun. Let's focus on next season. So obviously, I think losing Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles is going to be difficult for many reasons. I think my biggest concern on this is it's not just a new coaching staff, but there's a lot of turnover on both sides of the ball. You're going to have a lot of new faces, guys that haven't played next to each other on a ton of snaps. So that kind of raises concern, but I think the talent that we have on both sides of the ball, and it's not like we are filling those positions with people that don't have experience or don't know what they're doing. I think Buckeye Nation has been beating the drum to have Brian Hartline really take over as offensive coordinator and and be involved in the play calling more. He's going to get that opportunity this year. He's going to have some of the best weapons in college football at his disposal. So that's really exciting. I think my concern is more so on the defensive side. You have Matt Patricia, very, very veteran coach who's been there, done that with some of the best players in football. How does he mesh at the college level with a lot of inexperience on that side? Like, it's great that you have Caleb Downs coming back and Sonny Styles and Igba Newsome. Like, those are great pieces, but like, how does he get all of that to fit together when you've got, almost 7 to 8 guys who haven't really played consistently on the field together for 60 minutes. So that's more so where I'm kind of looking at. The other one that's kind of like under the radar to me is, we have Tyler Bowen now as the offensive line coach. As much as maybe we complained last year about offensive line, we complained about recruiting, all of those things. I think last year we figured some things out and ended up putting together a really good product on the offensive line. So there's a shift there now. Like, Fry's not here. We're moving to Tyler Bowen. He's got some new faces on that offensive line, but also has some experienced guys that are going to be stepping up. So I think that's one to keep an eye out on. But yeah, I think all in all, I'm not super concerned about the coaching changes. It'll just be interesting to see in general how all the new faces, coaches, players kind of mesh together, and maybe what that defense looks like, knowing it may not be like a carbon copy of the Jim Knowles defense. Like, what is Matt Patricia's vision for this defense that may be different than Jim Knowles?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think I would say, and I stand with you on the whole, like, more concerned about the defense than the offense, mostly because Ryan Day is the mastermind behind all of this. Clearly he had Chip Kelly, and his veteran expertise, and even his mentorship to Ryan Day last season. But Ryan Day is the offensive, that this is how he is in this position. He's been this genius on the offensive side, and Brian Hartline has been in this incubator with him, for his whole coaching career, right? He's been learning from Ryan Day. There's going to be some growing pains within it. He's a young coach, although he's seen a lot of success and clearly gets his, wide receiver room ready, and does great on the recruiting trail, like calling the entire offense and all of that, and going from Chip Kelly is going to be some growing pains, but it is under Ryan Day, so I have a lot of faith there. The defense, have some talent, but there's some potential gaps maybe on the defensive line. Just have some concerns there. But again, you retained a lot of that staff around that was around Knowles, that learned from Knowles the past 3 years, and some very well-respected guys that were even up for the conversation to become defensive coordinator that are still in there with their guys and with some veteran talent like Caleb Downs, Iggy, et cetera. So. Not overly concerned. I don't expect things to be perfect. It definitely will be a step down initially. But I think for the long term of the program, I think it works out pretty well. And I'm ready for November 1st to get some revenge on Jim Knowles and the way that he left. So excited for that. Of course, in this new era, not only do you have coaching changes and a new recruiting class, but of course you have portal grabs. You got some pretty big names out of there. You got Max Clare, Ethan Oniawa, CJ Donaldson, and Bo Atkinson. Who are you most excited for from that portal group, and who do you think will make the most impact from game one?
Yeah, I mean, I think the two names that kind of pop out is going to be Bo Atkinson. One, because we're losing quite a bit off the edge with JT and Jack. So great opportunity for him to come in, a little bit more of a veteran presence. And so I think he'll complement, and they'll have a solid rotation with him and Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson. So I think that's a huge piece just because the defensive line in general is pretty raw from just a sheer experience perspective. So I think that was huge. Max Clare, one of the best tight ends in football last year, was stuck in the pits of hell of Purdue. Now he gets to come play on a very explosive Ryan Day offense. And so, there's only so many mouths to feed on the offense. And when you've got Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis, I think Max Clare is a perfect addition to fit in with those guys that maybe gives Julian Sayin an extra weapon that we haven't seen from Ohio State in a while, and that's somebody that can really go catch passes, get those extra yards, be a good safety outlet for Julian Sayin or Lincoln Keenholz, whoever wins out the battle. So those are the two that really stuck out, and then obviously some support on the offensive line is huge. C.J. Donaldson, great. But I think running backs in the Ohio State offense, as we've seen over the last 5 years, it's kind of a plug and play. There haven't been too many guys that have really failed to succeed. But I think he's a good addition as well.
For sure. Yeah. I'm excited about I would say more excited about everyone but Donaldson, but I think Donaldson can become a guy that we just love. It's similar to, and I'm blanking on his name right now, but he transferred to Kentucky.
Mylan Williams, or not you're thinking.
Oh yeah, Mylan Williams, who was the guy that came in as he was a linebacker at Arizona State, and then he came and then he
Chip trained
him. Yeah. Okay, how can we forget the guy that won over Notre Dame with that last second touchdown?
Yeah.
Anyways, it could be one of those guys where it's does he turn out to be anything beyond it? I don't know. Is he super exciting? Maybe not, but he's one of those guys that you could fall in love with pretty easily. But I'm mostly excited about Ethan Oniawa. Big dude. Clearly is what you need. He's just going to be a monster. And I just you see
smelling salt videos of him in the locker room. I'm like, that's a guy I want protecting the weak side of Julian Sayin or Lincoln Keenholz. That sounds good to me.
Yeah, and I know it's a different coaching staff or different offensive line coach, but you just see the progress of grabbing a guy like Josh Simmons a couple years ago and what he turned into, and a lot of good things out of camp from the Chiefs, from what I've seen for Josh Simmons as well. So I think it seems like in this new kind of recruiting era where Tennessee and teams like that are throwing big NIL packages at the top left tackles or top tackles in the classes. This may be kind of the new route is go grab a guy who's at that kind of second level and just go bring him into a bigger program and develop him for a year or two. Seems to be maybe the new playbook for Tyler Bowen and Ryan Day. So excited for that one, but. Any other? I know that's really it from the pool. I know we grabbed a backup, veteran quarterback that won't play much of a role. But anything else, or should we just move on to the incoming freshmen?
Yeah, let's talk about some of the new freshmen. So solid class coming in, and this is one of those interesting years where, I already said it, both sides of the ball, more so on the defensive side of the ball, new faces. Guys that haven't played a ton of snaps. Is this a year where you see more production, more playing time for some freshmen? So who do you have kind of your eyes on from this incoming class that you could see one, impressing Buckeye fans when it's Grambling State week 2 and we're up by 40 and all of a sudden the second team defense is out there, but also who are some guys you could see plugging in, playing meaningful snaps in big moments?
Yeah, I think everyone, and I've heard him referred to as the Jeremiah Smith of the defense, right? Devin Sanchez, I think is the one that catches my attention. I think can be plugged in early. Clearly maybe some more competition and he may not be a day one impact. I guess that's still to be seen, but very excited for him. And he's going to be a household name before long. So whatever, I don't have super high expectations for this season, but he could be a guy that by, the Penn State game we're talking about as a huge impact player for us. The others, I've heard some good things. I am excited for Bo Jackson. Again, the running back room had a lot of turnover. You bring in C.J. Donaldson, you have James Peoples in there, but I've heard a lot of good things from, preseason camp so far. And was a highly recruited player coming into it. And again, similar in my opinion to Devin Sanchez, where he could be a household name by Penn State, but he also may be buried in the room a little bit, and you may only see those moments from him at, Grambling and Ohio and et cetera, because, James People and CJ Donaldson are so impactful, and they don't want to, Carlos Lachlan doesn't want to interrupt that flow there. So he could just be more of a guy for the future. So those are, and probably not sleepers by any means, like probably everyone, those are the top two on everyone's list, but are any of the other freshmen kind of catching your attention?
Yeah, I think two, once again, probably not guys that are like plugging in, playing a ton of snaps in big moments, but I think Riley Pettijohn has a good chance to see the field quite a bit. That linebacker room is really solid right now with Arvell, with Sonny Styles. Peyton Pierce seems to be just lighting it up in camp right now. But I think he's a talent that you really want to try and get some experience in this upcoming year, knowing that Sony's most likely going to be or Sony will be heading to the draft. Yep. I think the other one, Zion Grady, possibly see him in some rotations just because, like I said, that defensive line, there's inexperience. It's going to likely be a heavy rotation and getting guys out on the field. So I could see him being a guy that sees the field a little bit, gets some reps. Just excited to see him. He was a big recruit get for the Buckeyes as well. So, we talk about the transfers coming in, the freshmen, but the Buckeyes are bringing back a lot of star power. They're also bringing back some guys that are going to be stepping into roles that, they weren't in last year because of how talented that roster was. So let's go by offense and then defense. I think offense is going to be relatively obvious, but who do you see that's coming back into this, Buckeye locker room that's going to take a big leap, that's going to have not just Buckeye fans, but, college football fans going, holy crap, where was that guy last year? Like, how was that guy hidden that we didn't see a ton of? Or, so who do you have really taken that big leap this year?
Well, I won't steal your thunder because I saw the show notes, so I'll give you the opportunity to talk about the wide receiver because that's who I would have talked about, but I'll give you that. I'll give you the floor on that one. I'm very excited for James Peoples. I think that, again, like you have this Trevion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins room that was so dominant, and he was a true freshman, but like he just could be primed to be that next guy and that next household name that goes on to the NFL. And a lot of people were calling him baby J.K. Dobbins last year. Like he just has this explosive potential to him and just some star power there. So I'm very excited for him. And, clearly he's stepping into, we went from, 4 years of Trevion, and again, you kind of had a cast of guys around him for a couple of years. Then you bring in, this big time player in Quinshon, and then you kind of pair them up. Like he's, there's a lot of there's a big gap to fill, but I think he will step up to the plate and provide, I guess, a security blanket in some ways, right, for this offense to, go to the run game. Because I think the offensive line is in the best shape, even though we've, had Paris Johnson and Josh Simmons and Donovan Jackson over the past, few seasons. Like this offensive line is a very exciting group, both from the guys that were brought in and Ethan Aniawa, but also, Sarah Beld and Montgomery and the guys that really stepped up towards the end of last year. So I think that can provide a little spark for the offense as early on, things are maybe figured out from the quarterback and some chemistry things to clearly the strong core of wide receivers. But that takes us to it. I'll give you the floor. We both agree on this, but I'll give you the floor for the wide receiver we're excited for.
Yeah, Buckeye fans know it very, very well. People that don't watch the Buckeyes every week, they're going to know a guy by the name of Brandon Innes this year. It's no secret. He's one of the most praised Buckeyes right now in that locker room. He's looked at as a leader. And I think he hasn't had that opportunity to really showcase his skill set. When you're in a room that has Jeremiah Smith and, these star-studded receivers, it's tough to really stand out. This will be his year, much like I kind of felt with Carnell Tate last year, where like, hey, this is his opportunity. I thought Carnell Tate did that well last year. I thought he had a lot of really, really good performances. And this year he's going to have the opportunity to kind of step into that true wide receiver 2 or 1B, whatever you want to call it. So I think Brandon Ennis takes a big step up. And then, from maybe Brandon Ennis's role last year, you're going to see Mylan Graham kind of step into that role where he's going to be on the field. He's going to get some targets. They're going to find a way to get him involved. He's an ultra talented wide receiver. And I expect him to have some really big plays this year. The other, like from an offensive perspective, and this isn't just a Max Clare, bump, but I think the tight end room altogether is going to have a big bump up from last year.
Yep.
You bring in Max Clare, you're returning Will Kazmarek, you're returning Jelani Thurman, and then I'm sure you've seen some of these as well, but the reports about Christian Bennett right now have been like extremely good. He's looked at as kind of the leader right now in that tight end room. Very vocal. They're going to find ways to get him on the field as well. So we have a really good rotation of guys that I think Ryan Day trusts. And last year it was like, we had Will Kazmarek. He kind of, he obviously goes down early in the year. And then it was just, kind of feeling it out for the rest of the year on who was going to fit into that spot. I still go back to the Jelani Thurman catch against Penn State where he bobbles it. What was it, like 42 times and then finally comes down with the catch. So it'll be fun to see that room kind of grow and evolve this year as we head into a fresh set of games. So excited about that. On the defensive side, this is the interesting side of the ball for me because a lot of new faces on that side of the ball, but also guys that can go. And like, it's not because they weren't capable last year. It's because they had, some of the best guys in college football on that side of the ball that, just didn't make sense for them to see. So who are you expecting to really stand out on that defense and have a huge leap in what they provide for us?
Well, it's the guy that almost gave Buckeye Nation a heart attack last week when he went down with an injury that could have been very bad. Luckily, it seems like it's going to be okay. But Edric Houston, not only because do I think he has the talent and ability to, but like he needs to, because this is one of the positions where you have some guys that can rotate in, but there's not a lot of depth and there's not a lot of veteran experience. And Edric Houston himself isn't that, doesn't have that much experience. But I do think, and because of the injury and because of the Pete Thamel, tweet, maybe people are becoming more familiar with his name. But this is a guy that was brought in as a defensive end, has kind of transitioned into this tackle position and is filling some very, very big shoes with a Tyleik Williams tackle position, right? So I'm excited for him, but I think it's not only does he have the talent to, but like he has to, and like barring injury, like it would be a failure of a season, right, if he doesn't become that, because there's bigger problems that could result in him not stepping into that. So have big expectations for him, but do think that he has that ability to step in and replace Tyleik Williams as much as you can and set himself up for a junior and potentially senior year season to build even further on that, take it to the next level. So he's the one I'm most excited about, and again, need to be excited about, and just hope that this injury is very minor and that he's good to go for August 30th.
Yeah, no, I think that's the biggest name on that side of the ball. I think setting the expectation that he replaces Tyleik Williams, and that is a very, very high bar. I remember grabbing this guy and it's changed so much over the last 5-6 years on the recruiting, side of things. But when we got Edric Houston committed, I was like, that's not a guy we were getting. Like, that's a Georgia, Alabama, like that's a Southern kid that we brought up here. I think he is going to be a force to be reckoned with on the defensive side of the ball. I remember him getting some run last year where he was just mowing people down on the offensive line. And I'm like, the room will be all right. Obviously there's going to be some rust, some, just getting up to speed, playing full speed, playing every single game, high amount of snaps. Like, that stuff's going to take some time for him to get used to. But, I think he's up for the challenge. Same thing on the edges. Like, I think by week, I think by halftime of the Texas game, people are going to be like, who the hell is Kenyatta Jackson? And where has Ohio State been hiding him? And it's like, well, they've been hiding him behind, behind two of the best edges in football last year. So, that's another big one. The other one that I had, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, because there's been heartburn around this player from Buckeye fans for the last 2 years. Davison Igbenusum decides to come back to Ohio State. He has never been the lockdown cornerback one. I think he takes a big step this year.
Yeah.
I think he is a big leader on the defensive side of the ball. He's a big energy guy, and I think sometimes that gets him into some handsy troubles when the ball's in the air. I could see him making a big step this year, knowing like, hey, I don't have the luxury of doing that this year. If I want to be a second round or a third round, draft pick, like I can't make those mistakes, but also like this defense can't afford those kinds of things, where last year we had a little bit more, wiggle room with just some of the names we had out there. So I think he takes a big leap. I'm curious your thoughts on, is it going to be the status quo where we're all like throwing our hands up in the air asking what the hell he's doing? Or do you think that he cleans some things up this year and really impresses?
I hope you're right. I think I stand more in the camp of there's going to be some frustration, and there's going to be like, oh man, why'd this guy have to come back? Like, I hope that you're right. I think that there's a lot of potential with him. And to your point, right, he has the leadership and energy level that this defense with a lot of turnover is going to need. But I don't know how much he's just always been that guy, and that's probably that led him to a lot of success in his career. But like, I just don't know how much you can change that. And I hope to be wrong, but I stand in the other camp a little bit, unfortunately.
All right, we'll see. Let's talk like week 4. Let's make a note to just come back to this, and
sounds good.
We'll see who had who had it right. So so those are kind of the guys that we're keeping an eye out for making a big jump in the season. But let's kind of take the 50,000-foot overview, kind of just look at the season as a whole. I've seen some things that Ohio State has the cupcake Big Ten schedule this year, which I don't understand at all. Like, I don't know if they want us to play Penn State, Oregon, Michigan, like every single year. But before we really get into the schedule, as always with Ohio State, since we've started doing this, we have a QB competition. Uh-huh. And this was a question I was going to ask you. I was glad you put this in here, but this is now the third year in a row in the season where QB is unknown.
Nope.
Last year we had a pretty good idea, but everything from camp was like, this is incredibly close. It's Will Howard, it's Devin Brown. Like, nobody was really 100% confident until Ryan Day announced it. This year we're in the same thing. Julian saying, Lincoln Keenholz, kind of battling it out right now. It seems like both are having their ups and downs throughout the camp. I guess my question for you before we get into like who do we think's under center week one, I think we're both going to be on the same page on it, but do you think this is a concern for Ryan Day, for Buckeye football in the future, that we're now like in this 3-year stretch where we haven't had a ton of consistency, a ton of confidence in who is the leader of that offense going into the season? Like, is that concerning to you at all?
I think yeah, I think so, but I mean, it's also like, it's kind of part of it, right? Like it's the natural turnover in college football plus the portal. Like, there's just a lot of moving pieces now where it's like, it's really hard to lock down a quarterback for a long period. Now, Ohio State should have the ability to do that more than other schools, but like, it's hard to keep a guy at bay for a little bit while you bring in a Will Howard, or, you know, like there's a lot of complexities into it. So I'm not overly concerned, because I don't think that this is unique to Ohio State. Like, I think any big program is going to deal with it. I don't know. I mean, I think I'm very curious to see how this turns out, because I do think a pre-Kyle McCord era, like, you know, before that quarterback battle and how that kind of turned out, I think Julian Sand is like the no doubt about it, like, question, you know, like, he's the guy. I think that you had this difficult, you know, kind of similar type of QB battle in some ways, right? Where you had this 5-star recruit, and then you have this guy who's kind of a dual threat supposedly, and then you go and win a national championship with this dual threat. I think it gives Lincoln Kienholz more of an opportunity here. So I guess getting kind of into it a little bit, like, I think we both agree that Julian Sand is the guy, but I do think that Lincoln Kienholz can play like a Bo Pribula for Penn State last year type of role, and could do what they started to kind of do towards the end of the Kyle McCord season, where Devin Brown got, you know, God rest his soul. He
didn't die. He's just out in California.
He's just in California. But I think that, you know, you can have kind of a package set up, because I do think where Julian Sand lacks is like where Ohio State has seen success in the past year. And but at the end of the day, he has that accuracy, and he has that, you know, throwing ability to get it to Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Max Clare, Brandon Innes, etc. So, where do you stand? I mean, I think it should be wrapped up in the next couple of weeks, but do you think Kienholz has more of an opportunity to actually win the job, or what's your thoughts?
I think last year, you know, what was it? Probably 3 weeks before the season, 2 weeks before the season is when Ryan Day made the announcement. It was like mid-August. I think it was like August 22nd, somewhere around.
Sounds right. Yeah.
That he like put the flag in the ground. Hey, it's Will Howard. I think this year, from a strategic kind of perspective, I don't know if we're going to get that heading into Texas. I think you're going to find that out. I think you might find that out the week before, because we're going to get into that. And the reason I say that is it gives Texas a little bit more to think about. If they don't know if it's going to be Julian Sand or if it's going to be Lincoln Kienholz, you have to prepare a little bit different for Lincoln Kienholz than you may with Julian Sand. I could be completely off on that. Just kind of a gut feeling of like, I could see Ryan Day not giving Texas the ability to really start putting that game plan together super early on who they think they're going to be facing. Here's my challenge, and I've seen this on, like, you know, if Lincoln Kienholz isn't the guy, we have to find a way to get him involved. Here's my concern with that is, if we're finding ways to get Lincoln Kienholz involved, usually that means we're going to put him in some RPO, let him use his legs, let him go be athletic. To me, that feels pretty cutesy when you've got Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Brandon Innes and Max Clare. Like, with Bo Pribula, it made sense because, like, Drew Aller, great quarterback, but also, like, he didn't have guys that were just out dominating as wide receivers. Like, he was having to make do with some guys that just weren't at the same level. For us, it's like, if Julian Sain isn't moving the ball down the field with those guys, we've got bigger concerns than like, hey, we've got to switch it up and go with a drive of Lincoln Keenholz, like, going out and being athletic. So
Fair.
I like the idea of it. I like throwing a fresh look out there. I think the other part of that is I don't think anybody is of the opinion that like Lincoln Keenholz is incapable of throwing the ball well.
Yeah.
So like maybe it's a little different than Bo Pribula, where like they really relied on him to go be athletic and use his legs. Like maybe it's a different look where it just makes him think a little different, but I think he'll make the decision. I don't know if we're going to see a ton of Lincoln Keenholz in those positions for a couple of reasons. One, why? Like, why are we taking the ball out of our studs' hands? But also, there's not a lot behind Lincoln Keenholz. So if he goes out there and he's running it up the gut and twists an ankle, you're looking at a true freshman, Tavian St. Clair, who would have to step into some big moments if anything were to happen to Julian Sain. So I think you also have to protect the room a little bit. But yeah, that's my opinion. It's going to be Julian Sain. When it gets announced is obviously still a mystery, but I think that's going to be the play. I'm excited about it. I think he's got all the talent, all the weapons in the world. His job is going to be easier than any quarterbacks in college football this year. He's just going to have to go get the job done.
Yeah, no, I get where you're. I think you won me over on the if Keenholz is playing, there's maybe bigger issues, or don't get too outside the box. But we'll see. I mean, I think he can serve the backup role pretty well as well. The only thing I disagree with you on to an earlier point is I think you have to name the starter soon. I don't think that you hold it back, and I think it's more to like win over the locker room and like really build the chemistry going into August 30th. But
you can do that
privately
inside of the four walls of like, hey, here's what we're going with. We're not going to announce this. Like, it's going to be, you can do that. It's going to become very apparent. Like, you're going to see somebody out taking first team reps more consistently than the other.
Yeah.
Like it'll be apparent, it's not going to be a massive surprise to people the later we get into the season or into this, preseason. But yeah, I'm interested to see when Ryan Day officially makes that announcement because, man, it seems like they like Lincoln Keenholz.
I know.
It's you keep on seeing like the Iron Buckeye and all of these things, and it's like, I feel like Buckeye fans in general are like, yeah, it's Julian Sain. Why would it not be Julian Sain? But like then you listen to coaches talk, and like I think Ohio State coaches in general, they're pretty good about when they say something, it's not like smoke screens or any of this stuff. They really mean it. So yeah, it'll be interesting, but it's going to be Julian Sain. All right. I talked a little bit about like we're hearing about the cupcake schedule. What are your predictions for Ohio State football? Give me a regular season record and tell me, based on, I guess, what you say, unless you say 12-0, let me know kind of what your thoughts are as far as, where we fall short, who gives us tough games, things like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 10-2. But it's not the 2 that I think most people are marking us up for. One of them is. I do think it's a close loss to Texas, unfortunately. I just think that there's, they have a lot of turnover as well. So don't want to get that wrong. And we have the advantage being at home for that game. But I do think there's a lot to be figured out. And like you have a new offensive coordinator, you have a new quarterback. You have some question marks on the defensive line. Like, yes, you have some guys that can step up, but also like there's just a lot of change that has happened as a whole to the program, and that's a tough game, to open up with. So I do think that will be a close loss, but I do think that similar to the Oregon game, right? Like I think that there will maybe be some changes made, or some learning lessons that they'll instill to the rest of the season. So I do think like a Penn State, I do think that we're ready for that by then, but I do think there's another loss before that, unfortunately. And I think it's one of the tougher games, maybe sneaky tougher games, is the Illinois game.
Yeah.
Worries me a little bit. And Illinois has been kind of ramping up, not the household name that we're used to seeing, but they may be, and I can't remember where they ended up in the poll the other day,
12.
But are they 12? Okay. So they're not quite top 10, but it's going to be on the road. It's going to be kind of, unfortunately, that similar point in the season as Oregon last year, where you kind of had, you have Texas and you kind of ramp down a little bit, and you kind of have to ramp back up, go on the road. So I do think that they lose that one, but I do think that by the time that Penn State rolls around, and of course one of the most important games of the year, and at the end of November, I think those are wins, and we correct the James Franklin still has to show that he can beat Ohio State, just like Ryan Day needs to show that he can beat the team up north. So, but I'm going 10-2, and that could look a little different. I could be wrong. Maybe it is Illinois and Penn State, or maybe it's Penn State and the team up north, or whatever, right? But I think that's where I'm comfortable landing, and that seems to be where most people are landing. But where do you land? And what's your close calls there?
Yeah, I'm 10-2 as well. I think Texas is it's going to be a tough game to start the season. So many new faces, and they're in a relatively similar boat. Like they lost a lot of guys. I just think that's a close game. It could go either way. Obviously, it's at home. That helps. But I don't have the warm fuzzies about that game. As far as tough games, I think you're spot on. Illinois is going to be a tough environment. It's been a while since Illinois has been in that, like, hey, we're a top 15 team, and not like, hey, we're 22nd in the country because it's week 10 and a bunch of teams have 3 losses, and so do we. Like, this is the first time they have real expectations going into the season. They have a really good schedule. So I think that's going to be tough. The other one that's tough is, you start off Big Ten play on the road at Washington. That's a tough environment. You're traveling across the country. I think that's going to be a closer game than some people may think. The second loss is Penn State this year.
Okay.
They've got kind of the Ohio State, the Michigan blueprint, where it's like, let's reload, everybody come back. They didn't lose a ton. Outside of, obviously, Abdul Carter's a huge thing to be missing on their defensive line. But I think he may have missed the game last year against Ohio State anyways.
Yeah.
No, he was there.
Wait, was he?
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry. Who was missing, though? There was somebody that was...
Abdul Carter played. He just did not get a ton accomplished.
Well, he started off strong with that play on Donovan Jackson, and then we were like, oh.
He got blown by. Like, Donovan Jackson looked like a statue. And then the rest of the game, it was like, okay, like we may have figured some things out.
I'll figure it out. But there was somebody that was critical of Penn State that didn't play. I thought
one of their linebackers that maybe wasn't.
Maybe, yeah. Either way.
I can't remember, but
yep.
So that one's just a tough game. I mean, you get them at home, so like you have Texas and Penn State at home. Like, to me, those are both coin flip games, and like the way I'm looking at it. But two, I could see us losing. I think we go on the road in Ann Arbor and get the monkey off our back this year.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I'll be in attendance. I told you this. Unfortunately, my stepdad is a Michigan fan, and part of he wanted to take me to a game, so this is the one he chose. So going up there, my Jeremiah Smith jersey, and I'm sure we'll return in perfect condition. I'm sure things will be thrown.
It's going to be an awkward car ride home for somebody. But no, I think with that loss against Penn State, I think that puts us back in the Big Ten championship game for the first time since 2020, which will be exciting. It's crazy to think it's been 5 years with the success that programs had. But yeah, so I've got us going back to the Big Ten championship game, it's tough to make a call on whether we win it or not, just not knowing how everything unfolds. And then I have us college football playoffs again this year. I did put as the 6th seed. I don't know if you're going to find a way to put Ohio State too far down if their 2 losses are Texas and Penn State, like the way I have it playing out. But we'll see. We will see. Do you think Ohio State has a chance to get back to the Big Ten championship game as a 1-loss? I mean, last year it was 2 losses. Who ended up going last year? It was Oregon, Penn State. Both were 1-loss Big Ten teams, right? Or Oregon was undefeated.
Undefeated, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a path because, one of the being 10-2 and the only loss being to Penn State. I think Oregon. I haven't dug too much into their stuff, but they have a lot of turnover as well. They have a lot of unknown at quarterback. Very similar to us. Really, they don't have us on the schedule, but I think that some question marks with them. And I think I'm pretty sure they're on the road at Penn State, if I'm remembering correctly. And so, anyways, they can have some challenges. But no, I think it's possible. And I think it is. I think it's likely. Again, clearly have to finish off the season in Ann Arbor and hope that you get the monkey off your back there. But I think it's very possible. And in my scenario, I only have them losing to Illinois, and I don't think Illinois is going to. Although I think that they'll be in the conversation, I think they may end up in a kind of a 2-loss, 3-loss season as well. So we'll see. But
gotcha.
Okay. Well, anything else that worth discussing? And again, in the next couple episodes, we'll do an offensive side, dive deeper into, it's crazy. We almost went the whole episode. Didn't really, other than kind of the forefront, mentioning Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and the guys that are so we'll dive in more clearly to what impact they'll have and kind of expectations, some stat, maybe do some bets around those guys on kind of season totals. And kind of same thing on the defensive side. But anything else kind of worth throwing out to end up this episode?
No, I think we got back to, let's cover all of our bases. What's new? What are we expecting? It'll be fun talking about both sides of the ball. One of these episodes is going to get derailed by news about Michigan. It's going to happen one way or the other. I'm done talking about it at this point. I could care less, whatever happens, but it is something we'll touch on. I think that news is supposed to be coming relatively soon. From what I understand, they want to do it before the season starts. So that'll be something we throw in at some point in time, but you'll never guess we know just about as much now as we did, 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, however long it's been. So, great way to kick it back off. Excited to be back on the mic with you, and man, am I excited for Buckeye football.
Just around the corner. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. We'll look forward to the future upcoming episodes and just what is to come here for the 25-26 season. Once again, been Owen Smith, Matt Warner for the Buckeye Breakdown. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.